Hey guys, and welcome back. My name is James, and today we're going to be restoring an old bag that I found in a very sad state using just a few simple techniques and mainly just lots of tender love and care, TLC, good old TLC, to see if we can bring this bag back to life. Hopefully you enjoy and learn a few things along the way. This bag is a 25-year-old bag that was made specifically for the previous owner, as it's basically the previous owner, as far as I can understand, was a social worker, and one of the people that she was working with was an old saddler, or at least a leather worker, and she specifically asked or requested for him to make her this bag. And that was 25 years ago. Now, as you can see, the leather is very dried out, but overall the bag is in good condition. There are a few scuffs and scratches on the leather, but nothing too deep and nothing that is damaging. The big issue here just simply is that the leather is old and starting to be, quite frankly, a bit dry in places and needs some attention, as simple as that. Now, this is not the worst case scenario I've seen in basically a long time. It's fine. When you're pressing down on the leather, you can see it's nice and supple. It doesn't wrinkle too much when you press, and it takes its shape back afterwards. As far as I can tell, it is going to be about 2.5 millimeter thick vegetable tanned leather. As you can see, as we will see later in the video, it won't take a burnish tremendously well, but it does burnish a bit. The closing mechanism is a bit odd, a bit flimsy. It flops out, flops all over the place, and unless you know exactly what to do or how to keep it in place, it does bounce around. And it's not my preferred system, but it works. It definitely works. Now, this was made 25 years ago, and it was used for 15 years as just a handbag, apparently. For me, it's a bit big for a handbag, but you know, to each his own, so why not? Why not a handbag? Anyhow, I definitely see this coming back to life as what it is. It's basically a sort of a take of a doctor's bag or a work bag, and I think that's exactly what it could be used for in the future. Either a small carry bag for daily wear, like accessories, or maybe a change of clothes or two, things like that. Or you could use it as a tool bag, a work bag, and enjoy it as it is like this for a long, long time to come. The first thing to do here is going to be using a copious amount of saddle soap here. Let that dry a few minutes and then rub off the excess. Now, saddle soap will do two things. First of all, most importantly, it will clean the leather. It will make sure it's a bit acidic, not too much, so it's not very aggressive, but it does do a good job at getting rid of the dirt and anything that may be on top of this leather and clean it out nice and thoroughly. So you don't want to be doing this too often, but from time to time it definitely helps a lot. The second thing it does is actually add in quite a bit of oil back into, or greases, I'm not exactly sure, but it does help to nourish the leather a bit. So once it's been given enough time to dry, generally a few, maybe 10-20 minutes minimum, but I like to leave things over time just to really give them a good chance of drying out thoroughly. So I left it for a couple of hours before brushing it off, and this is basically just getting rid of the excess saddle soap that might have stayed on the surface. And already you can see you've gone from a very dry leather to something that's much, much nicer here, much more supple, much more, much better, and is going to last in general much longer. The second step in this process for me is going to be adding some neatsfoot oil. As I mentioned, the saddle soap, even though it's not tremendously aggressive, isn't the softest thing to do to leather. That's why you shouldn't be doing it too often. So go for it, but bear in mind that it will dry out the leather a bit, or it's not amazing for it. So I always like to go ahead and give it a nice coat of oils here. The neatsfoot oil is made for this kind of leather, and you can see how fast the leather absorbs this neatsfoot oil, especially in places where it's a bit dry, and that's a good indication that this leather did need these oils back in. Again, you want to give it a few hours to let it rest and let those oils absorb into the leather, through the top coat, into those bottom coats of leather, into the fibers, and it will basically give those fibers the suppleness that they require in order to stay nice and strong and bonded throughout the wears, and as the leather gets moved around, these fibers won't detach and the leather won't crack, which is why neatsfoot oil is a really great thing for this. Now, you could use lots of other things. Conditioners generally can be a great option on this one as well. I went for this. Now, I do have a leather balm that I love as well, that I was definitely tempted to try out on this. I'll probably use it in a different video. Homemade leather balm can be very easy and very effective, especially to do. And yeah, so I just decided to go for the neatsfoot oil, as that's what I knew, and I know it works well, and I know it's one of the best, although it's not necessarily readily available in most hardware stores. It's more of a specialized item, which you can get in leatherwork stores, or even, and this is an interesting one, if you live near a place which has lots of horseback riding, lots of people who like to ride will use saddle soap and neatsfoot oil on their different tools and equipment. So if you've got a sports shop nearby, maybe go and try out them. If they have a riding section, they'll probably have neatsfoot oil and saddle soap ready for anyone who needs it. I love to use sapphire polish on my different items, really. I've just fallen in love with sapphire range. They have a great range. They are slightly more expensive than regular polishes, if not very much more expensive than the very basic polishes you might be able to find in most supermarkets. But the finish is sublime on these, and I trust sapphire to always give you a consistent and solid professional or semi-professional result on nearly everything that you might do. Put on one coat. Now, make sure you don't put on too much, because you can always take it off. You can always take it off, but it just becomes so much harder to take off once you put on too much. So put on a good coat, let it dry for at least 10 minutes. Again, I gave it at least half an hour before going back to it, and then take off the excess with a clean cloth, a dry cloth, something quite soft. And then, or if there isn't too much of it, brush it down or buff it with a horsehair brush. The next step here, although at this point the bag is pretty much good to go if you wanted to, the next step for me is going to be taking care of the handle. Now, there is a lot of dirt and stuff going on the copper handle. I'm not sure if it's copper. I think it's like that. It's some kind of metal with a brass top plate. I don't know how to call it. It's been coated in brass, or it looks like brass, but it's very grimy, and for me at least, it needs a clean. Now, a lot of people love that patina. They love that vintage look, but I'm going to give it a clean. But before that, yeah, we're just having a quick look at how the leather has suddenly come back to life. This was the worst part of the leather, the most dried out part, and you can see that it's absorbed a lot of those oils, and it's just looking really fabulous and rich. And this probably started off a natural color, but with time it became a nice golden dark brown color, and that color just really pops with a coat of wax, sapphire polish wax. But indeed, this patina is the next big step for me. Most people, I think, would prefer keeping it, but for this particular video and for the purpose of bringing this bag back to life, I am going to try and do something about this. For this, I have a small tube of this slightly abrasive polishing paste, and you can see I've already started on the right hand side polishing it, and you can see just how much of that patina is being taken off. And just saying it feels wrong, you know, taking off the patina. It just feels wrong to me. So I'd love to know in the comments down below what you think about this step. Do you think it's necessary or not? Because on the one hand, I do love patina on this kind of thing. It shows that it's been used, it shows that it's been loved, and it shows that the tool has served its function, which is as a bag to carry things and to protect what's inside, and this is what's happened. But on the other hand, the end result, bringing this handle back to life, is so satisfying and makes the whole bag pop so much that I actually don't know. And this is why I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Now, you can still see where it's been used. You can still see where that top copper plating or brass plating, whatever kind of plating is, you can still see where it's been worn off, where the rubbing has occurred, and there is still some areas I just couldn't get behind the rivets where you can still get that patina, but overall it's brought this whole thing back to life. It's making it really pop and shine against the leather, and the contrast against the leather is looking way more interesting now. So yeah, I guess it's really up to you guys whether or not you prefer this look or the previous look. I have to say I'm actually sold on this one, and I was a bit surprised about that.
Now remember that flimsy opening? I was thinking about how to make it better, and I realized that the very simple solution is to bend these upwards slightly in order for them to block in an open position against those metal lips that come down at the edges of the bag, and you'll see instantly that it wasn't too hard to do, and well, there we go. It just holds open now. It doesn't flop over. It just works. So all in all, looking really, really good. This is, don't forget, a 25-year-old bag, and you can definitely see that. But overall, it's still looking very nice. Now, for me, a project is not really finished until you've properly treated the edges. Some people love the raw edge look, as it does burnish, especially on veg tan leathers. Leather can burnish with use gorgeously, creating a very specific patina and a specific finish. But for me, in this instance, I felt like these edges, especially the inside edges that hadn't been properly burnished originally and won't get any burnish from any friction that's happening because they'll be on the inside, I felt like these needed another burnishing, or proper burnishing for once. And while I was at it, why not treat the outside as well? So for this, simply just scuff down the outside with some sandpaper. I was using 120 grit, you could use 240, up to you guys. I like 120, I find it's just right for me, although I sometimes go to 240 for something that's a bit more delicate. And give it a good buff and burnish. We're using, in my case, gum trag. Although Tokonol is the best to use in this case. You can use gum trag, you can use, actually some people use saddle soap and just a bit of water to slick it down, and that seems to work great if you know the technique. All in all, quite happy with this, but before sending it off anywhere, before storing it, I want to make sure it's nice and protected and give it one more coat of that sapphire polish. Just to make sure that I'm protecting all the leather as it should be, giving it one final nourish and one final shine, and there we go, it just comes out so gorgeously. I love sapphire products and I think they work really well, and yeah, let's have a look at the final result.
I just love the end results in this bag. The leather, as I said, if it's not cracked, you can really bring it back to life using some basic neatsfoot oil. Just clean it up and just give it a nice shine, and it really looks great. I have to admit, the longest part for me was redoing, or at least cleaning up the handle piece, which was in a real state. I mean, some of you might love the patina effect on that, which I completely understand. Personally, I love it as well. But in this case, my goal was to really bring it back to as close as new as possible. Now, obviously, it's been used a lot over the years, and that you can certainly tell on the final piece. But nevertheless, even if it looks a bit used and maybe a bit battered here and there, it looks gorgeous, and it looks like a bag that someone has loved, someone has taken care of this, and someone will love it for years and years to come. Or at least that's my hope. If you've enjoyed this video, guys, don't forget to leave a comment down below and like this video. That really helps. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel, as this really helps me grow and provide you guys with some better and better content. I've got loads of great things coming up in the next few weeks and months. Hopefully you guys will join me along for the ride, and I'll see you very soon for some more leathercraft.